everyone! Welcome to Studio Classroom on the Air. This is the place to come when you want to have some fun. My name is Rebecca, and I know that your English will improve today. I am sure that most of us would agree that it's important to receive a good education. But what about finance management? Is this also important? Well, you might not think it's very important, but actually, money management is very important to understand. Today, we have a very useful lesson called Personal Finance Tips. Now, sometimes we allow money to control us, but today we're going to talk about don't let your money control you. Well, friends, open up your magazines, and it's time for us to begin.
Personal Finance Tips. Control your money instead of letting it control you. School helps prepare students for life, but many financial advisors believe one key class is missing: money management. Often, when young adults get their first job, they don't have a clue how to handle their money. Worse yet, some college students collect large amounts of debt from student loans and credit cards. This puts them at a huge financial disadvantage as they enter adulthood. The key to money management is learning how to control one's money. Popular money management expert Dave Ramsey has put together 7 steps to help people use their money responsibly.
Well, it's time for us to talk about personal finance tips. Now, people don't always like to talk about money and how to handle money, but I think it's actually a very important topic and something that we should spend more time talking about.
You're absolutely right, Rebecca the Beauty. It is important to talk about personal finance tips, and I agree with you. When I was growing up, not a lot of people talked to me about how to manage my money. I think there were just some basic, simple reminders like don't spend everything that you have and make sure that you save some of your money. But it goes a lot deeper than that.
That's right. And if you're not careful, you can actually allow money to control you instead of you controlling your money. And that's never a good place to be in. We read, school helps prepare students for life. But many financial advisors believe one key class is missing: money management. And I agree with that completely.
Yeah. I've wondered for years, how come they don't teach money management in class, like junior high or high school? I just wonder if it's perhaps because they know students are listening and students are smart and they're going to make a lot of money and perhaps, I don't know, maybe not listen to the other classes because they feel like they don't need them.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Who knows? Well, I saw something on Facebook recently, and it actually said, we should get rid of Algebra 2 and replace Algebra 2 with a money management class. And I was thinking, what a great idea.
Well, I'm a fan of replacing some kind of math class with money management because I'm not a huge fan of math. Perhaps you want to replace your English class with money management. Friends, no. This English is a great subject. You gotta just, give it your best. You're doing a great job.
That's right. So don't go anywhere. Often, when young adults get their first job, they have no clue how to handle their money. Now, we want to take a look at that phrase, to handle one's money. Specifically, the word handle. This just means that you know how, or deal with, or have responsibility, or you're in charge of something.
Okay, so here's a question for you. How do you handle your money? And perhaps you can ask somebody else that question. How do you handle your money? Do you spend some of it? Of course, everyone spends money. How much money do you save? What percentage do you spend? What percentage do you save? Are you investing in anything like stocks or something else? How do you handle your money?
Worse yet, Some college students collect large amounts of debt from student loans and credit cards. Now we want to talk about a word that doesn't appear in our lesson, but it would be really good for you to know. And that is the word to incur. Incur large amounts of debt. This just means that you lose money or you have to pay a charge.
That's right. Now, with the idea of incur, it's like there's a cause and effect. So something happens and it makes something else happen, okay? So something you do could incur cost or expenses. Perhaps someone could incur anger. The president's decisions incurred a lot of anger from the people. So there are different situations where you could use that word incur. And I would agree with you, Rebecca. This is a great word for our lesson because that's what happens with debt, right? Mm-hmm. We incur debt. We do something to make us have some debt.
Right. And sometimes people don't even know what they're doing when they get a student loan or they start using their credit card. A credit card is a great way to incur debt because you end up spending money that you don't necessarily have.
And this puts them at a huge financial disadvantage as they enter adulthood. That means even before they're adults and before they're working and have a career, they're already at a disadvantage and they have to pay back a lot of money.
The key to money management is learning how to control one's money. Popular money management expert Dave Ramsey has put together 7 steps to help people use their money responsibly. And we're going to talk about some of those 7 tips today.
Exactly. And Dave Ramsey is a very popular we would call him a guru, okay, a teacher who is an expert on this subject. You know, in the United States, sometimes when we talk about a dollar, we talk about a buck. Have you ever referred to it as a buck? Do you have a buck?
Yes,
or 2 bucks?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, has the buck ever stopped with you, Rebecca?
Hey, that's a great question and a great phrase. Let's learn more about that in the Info Cloud.
Welcome to today's Info Cloud. Recently, I had a chance to take a short trip to Japan with some friends. Everything went great except our accommodations.
Wait, what happened, Rex?
Well, one of my friends didn't confirm our hotel reservation, but instead of apologizing, he passed the buck to somebody else.
Oh, when someone passes the buck, it means they blame another person instead of taking responsibility.
Buck refers to a knife with a buckhorn handle to show who would deal the cards in a poker game.
If someone didn't want to be responsible for dealing the cards, they would pass the buck to the next player.
So anyway, there we were in the hotel lobby and everyone was passing the buck to someone else.
What did you do? You couldn't just sleep outside.
Luckily, the hotel still had 2 rooms available. I said, the buck stops here, and used my card to pay for the rooms.
The buck stops here is another great phrase to say that the speaker will take responsibility for a situation and resolve it.
And that's exactly what I did. I wasn't going to sleep outside.
Good for you taking responsibility, Rex. It shows a lot of maturity to be willing to say, the buck stops here.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Studio Classroom. Do you know how to handle your money properly? That is, do you know how to save money, pay off debts if you have any debts? Well, I know that we all go to school, we get a good education, but sometimes we don't actually learn how to handle our money properly. Well, right now we are going to learn a little bit about Dave Ramsey and his 7 baby steps.
Personal finance tips. Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. 1. Save $1,000 in an emergency fund. This money is not to be used, except in the case of a real emergency. 2. Pay off all of your debt using something Ramsey calls the debt snowball method. Begin paying off your bills one by one. Every month, pay each minimum balance, but apply extra money toward the smallest debt. When that one is paid off, repeat the process with the next smallest debt. Repeat this process until each debt is paid.
Well, let's get right into Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. Today, we're only going to talk about 2 of those baby steps. And then, of course, tomorrow, we will talk about the other 5. Well, the first step is what, Gabe?
Okay, well, we read here, save $1,000 in an emergency fund. Now, this is not just any currency. It specifies $1,000 US in an emergency fund. This money is not to be used except in the case of a real emergency.
And we want to take a look at a phrase here in this very first point, and that is the phrase, in the case of. What does that mean? Well, if something happens, we want preparation for that something. And so that's when you would use the phrase, in the case of.
That's right. Think of it as in the matter of. So in this situation, what would you do? For an example of how to use this phrase, I know that you don't cheat, but in the case of your classmate Jimmy, I'm not so sure. Now notice I didn't say in case of classmate Jimmy. No, that doesn't make sense. We could say in Jimmy's case, I'm not so sure. So this phrase is kind of interesting. It might be a little bit confusing for you friends because it sounds a lot like the other phrase, in case of something, right? And that means in case something happens by chance. I would encourage you to go and look this phrase up on YouTube. Look up the difference between in the case of something and in case of something for more information.
Okay, let's move on to the second baby step. That is pay off all of your debt using something Ramsey calls the debt snowball method. Now, we want to take a look at a phrase that's very similar to this debt snowball method, and that is the snowball effect. What exactly is that, and what does that mean? This just refers to a situation in which something increases in size or importance at a faster and faster and faster rate.
And there are different examples of snowball effects in real life, right? So, for example, perhaps someone becomes successful, and their success leads to becoming more famous. They have more publicity, and that gets them more sales, and then they become even more successful, and everything goes on. It becomes a snowball effect. And like Rebecca said, it gets faster and faster. That's the idea behind a snowball effect.
And sometimes it could actually be a negative example, too. You know, I feel like gossip tends to do this.
Oh.
You know, maybe, or lying. You know, you lie one time and you think, oh, it's just a white lie. It's not a big deal. It's just a small little lie. And then before you know it, you lie again, you lie again, you lie and lie and lie and lie. And then before you know it, you're lying all the time. It happens.
Exactly. Or perhaps other people believe the lie, or people believe things that are not true about reality. And because they make those ideas popular, then of course it could become a snowball effect. And soon everybody is believing a lie. These are just a couple examples, okay? Think of some other examples. That's actually a good exercise for you to do. Think of some real-life examples of a snowball effect.
But of course, in our lesson, we're talking about this debt snowball method, and it's actually a good method to use when trying to pay off debt. Okay, we read, begin paying off your bills one by one, and that's a great thing to do if you have debt or bills that need to be paid off.
Okay, so every month pay each minimum balance, but apply extra money toward the smallest debt. And this is a practice that I try to do, or a habit that I try to keep, is to pay off all my debt as soon as possible, okay? Especially the minimum, but if I can pay it off right away, I'm talking about my credit card bills, if I can pay it all completely off right away, then I'll do it.
Well, in general, no one likes to have debt. You know, if you have debt, you're really indebted to someone or something, and you're not free. And so it's important to be able to pay off these debts as soon as possible.
So when that one debt is paid off, and we're talking about the one with the the lowest amount that you have to pay. When that debt is paid off, repeat the process with the next smallest debt. Repeat this process until each debt is paid.
And so the idea is that you're, taking a little bit of money and then you're applying it and applying it and applying it to each debt. And eventually, you will pay off all of your debts.
And I haven't researched this even more, but I'm thinking that the reason Dave Ramsey suggests this is because we really do feel good when we can check off something that we need to get done, right? A lot of times we can't pay off a huge debt, but if we can get rid of those smaller debts, we will feel really good about that and be encouraged to continue paying off the other debts.
And we encourage you to do the same thing with your English. Practice a little bit every day. And speaking of practicing your English, right now it's time for Say It in English.
How can I help you?
I'd like to exchange NT dollars for US dollars. Do you have a service charge?
Exchange. Service charge. It depends on how much money you exchange. How much would you like to exchange?
I'd like to exchange 10,000 NT dollars.
There is no service charge for amounts over 100 US dollars. Amount.
Okay.
Please show me your passport.
Here it is.
The total is 330 US dollars. Please sign on the dotted line.
Okay. Could you give me $100 in small bills?
Small bills. Sure. Do you want 10s or 20s?
10s would be great.
Here you go. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Now today we've spent some time talking about handling money. And we've learned 2 of Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. Now the first one is you should take 1,000 US dollars and put it in an emergency fund. And number 2 is that you should pay off all of your debts using the debt snowball method. Well, friends, we have 5 more tips to learn about next time. So make sure you join us tomorrow right here on Studio Classroom.